Today's date, the date of this video is January 3rd, 2020. It's Friday. It's 2020. We're going to have a big election this year, and as a result of our first study of the new year, it was a Wednesday night study at BBF called Current Events Update 2020, full edition. We had a real good question from a fellow named Jason Elliott, and after watching the study, he said, "Brother Greg, I agree with you on President Trump. I do struggle, however, with his compromise on sodomy. How does one balance the desire for our nation to keep biblical attainments with compromise on things like sodomite rights? On the one hand, we are supporting a man who is at least friendly to Christians, but on the other hand is friendly to sodomites. Any guidance is appreciated on this matter." And it's a good question, and as I respond, if you hear a little animosity in my voice, it's not directed at Jason. But I get this question sometimes from very friendly brethren like Jason, and other times I'm basically maligned and even mocked for standing with my president. Now listen, I've never stood with a president like this before. Ronald Reagan was before my time. The first time I could vote for president, I voted for George H.W. Bush, 1988, and I regretted it. And I never voted for another Republican until the year 2000, and I got suckered by George W. Bush in his talk about Jesus being his favorite philosopher and that stuff. And compared to his opponent, you know, George W. Bush looked like a good thing, so I voted for him and regretted it. By the time 2004 came around, I was writing in, I think I voted for the Constitutional Party candidate. I voted for, according to which election, but I voted for Howard Phillips and Virgil Goot and Bob Barr. One election I just wrote in somebody. And I wrote in Ron Paul during the primaries. So it's been very seldom, if you could have followed me online since the internet was invented, which was, I think, I got on the internet, I think it was 1999 when I got on the internet. And the 10 years prior to that, or 9 years prior to that, and the 20 years since, I've never been outspoken in my support for a president like I have Donald Trump. And this is a good question. Say, "Greg, you're a preacher, you're a Christian. Why are you standing up for Donald Trump?" When, as Jason sees it, and a lot of people see it that way, that he's friendly to sodomites. And I'll tell you this, and this may shock some of you, I'm friendly to sodomites. All the time. Now, I preach against their sin, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only thing I've seen Donald Trump do is, number one, say, the Supreme Court has made gay marriage legal. It's the law of the land. So he's not a king. He's not a dictator. There's nothing he can do about it. It's legal. Now, he's putting judges on the bench and in the Supreme Court that very well could overturn that. And Roe v. Wade, by the way. So his words, all I've heard him say is the facts. Gay marriage is legal. What can you do about it? I've even got a video out there where I demonstrate how I would do a gay marriage if I was forced to. They said, you either do a gay marriage or you're going to be thrown in jail, or we're going to take your building, and you're going to shut down your meetings. I can do a gay marriage, and some of that may shock you, but go watch the video. You'll see what I'm talking about. How is he also being friendly to sodomites? Is he called for a ban on the execution of gays, in quotes, because they're gay, because they're sodomites. Listen, folks, I don't apologize for being, I'm a dispensationalist. I don't believe we should be executing sodomites. I don't believe if you're going to execute sodomites, then you got to adopt the whole law. You can't just pick and choose. under the Mosaic law, is the only time in the Bible where God's people were called upon to execute homosexuals, sodomites, LGBTQ, gay, whatever your flavor is for that death style, and that's sin. And you also were to execute adulterers. So everybody who's ever committed adultery, if you've had sex outside of marriage, you're supposed to kill rebellious children, take them out and stone them, and so forth. As a dispensationalist, what I believe we're to do about the sodomites is to preach the gospel and stand firm on the truth that their sin is sin. Anything beyond that is anti-biblical. Anybody calling for the execution of sodomites is opposing Scripture, and they're in the wrong dispensation. In the millennium, I think they'll be killed again. So after the tribulation and the second coming and the kingdom is established, then I think you're going to get what you want. But in this dispensation, no. And so I'm just going to stick with the Bible. People get mad at me all the time. I have debates all the time with people because I won't go against or above or beyond or behind the Bible. And I'm just not going to do it. So I got this little list I want to show you. And you see this list, on one side is Trump and the other side is Democrats, because it doesn't matter whether it's Biden or Warren or Buttigieg or whatever, whoever ends up being the nominee. You can bet that the Democrat, whoever he is or she is, will side completely with Sodom and Gomorrah and not just be friendly towards Sodom and Gomorrah. There's a reason why most politically active sodomites hate Donald Trump and Mike Pence. There's a reason, folks. And it's not just because they're not Democrats. And the second one there, Second Amendment. Yes, I've been disappointed a couple of times by Donald Trump. A couple of times compared to every time with the Democrats. Everything. They would come after everything. It's apples and oranges. Yes, we should write letters and respond under his Twitter account if you're on there, or whatever. Pray about these things that Trump compromises on. But on those first two, it's a tiny bit of compromise compared to even most Republicans. I mean, other than Ted Cruz and Mike Pence and if we'd got Jeb Bush or, I don't know, I can't remember all the guys, John Kasich, all these people, they would go way further in compromise on the sodomite and the Second Amendment issues. Folks, we're in the last days. I'll be honest with you, I can't believe that a man like that, Donald Trump, is president. And then I see Christians who have trouble supporting him. I mean, you can't be pleased. Just admit it. You would never be pleased by anybody in the Oval Office. And that's ridiculous. And I know when I got it good. My parents weren't perfect. My wife isn't perfect. The people in the church aren't perfect, and they ought to know that their pastor isn't perfect. So we deal with the imperfections, but when you know that you got it good, you should appreciate it. I appreciate my parents. I appreciate my wife. I appreciate the people at BBF. I appreciate my kids and grandkids that I have good relationships with. They're not perfect, but I appreciate the fact that being imperfect like me, we still have way more in common and get along a lot better than, if they were totally in rebellion against God, if my parents were, had been drunks and drug users and all that, which some of you folks I can identify with, that having that kind of parent. I have a president who 9 out of 10 times at least sides with the people of God and real Americans. I haven't had that in my lifetime. It's just, if you look at this list, it's easy to support Donald Trump. Those top two, he has had some problems about less than 10% of the time. I'm telling you, 90% of the time on the Sodom, there's a reason why the Sodomites hate him, because 90% of the time he has sided with us. And the judges he's putting on the bench side with us. The Second Amendment, bump stock, I don't know if there's maybe one other issue I can't remember off the top of my head. 90+% of the time, he's as solid as can be on that, compared to Democrats 0% of the time. Anti-abortion. Enough said. I don't have to say anything about that. The man has been totally with us on the abortion issue. I think he says that in the case of the life of the mother, again, that's less than 1% of abortions that have ever been performed. In the cases of rape and incest, you're still under 1%. And there are other, I don't know, I think most Republicans say that. So where are you going to go? Some of you want the Apostle Paul to come back before Jesus comes back and be president. Otherwise, you're not going to be satisfied with him. He's anti-socialism. The Democrats are socialists. Trump is pro-Christian. The Democrats are anti-Christ. They kicked God out of their platform. They took out, well, and the next is pro-Israel. Democrats are anti-Israel. They took out the call for the embassy to be moved to Jerusalem before Trump even did move it. And their policies speak for themselves, but listen to the Democrats talk. It's the whole BDS movement is almost all Democrats. The whole pro-Palestinian movement is almost all Democrats here in America. Constitutional judges. I mean, he's setting records. The liberals in this country are just beside themselves because Trump is packing our courts with constitutionalists. And no, Bush never did that. Neither Bush did that, and even Reagan failed in a big way compared to Trump. Deregulation. If you don't own a business or you're not involved in business, you don't understand how important that is. And he's not got an A+ record on deregulation, but he went from our previous presidents were Fs, including the Bushes, F. And he's gone to about a B+. Lower taxation. And the numbers in the trillions of dollars that have come back from offshore accounts and now is being pumped into the American economy because of the lower taxes. And, you know, if you think, oh, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer, as the Democrats say, you believe a lie. The rich do get richer, and the poor get richer. The poorest in America are better off than the affluent in most other countries on the planet right now. And Americans are so spoiled rotten. They just, if they don't have a brand new car and a 55-inch TV with a smartphone and all this other crud, then they think they're suffering. It's just amazing. And big pharma reform and drug prices and all that. I mean, it's just amazing what President Trump is getting done to help us. I mean, my insurance, health insurance is going up, and the deductible's going up. And under Trump, I don't think it's increased much at all, but it's going up exponentially previously under Obama and Bush. Pharmacy prices on our insurance, I mean, it's amazing how little we have to pay for medicines. And you got these other, I'm not going to advertise for them, but there's 2 or 3 other programs that you just have a card and it slashes the price. Anybody can get it. And you can thank Donald Trump for being able to get drugs cheaper and easier, and as well as getting access to drugs that the FDA's been blocking. And so we go on and on, but the last one on the list is pro-America. The Democrat Party and progressive rhino Republicans like McCain and Romney and Kasich and Jeb Bush and the Bush family, they're anti-American. They're pro-globalist. And the Democratic Party is totally given over anti-American. But we have a president who's putting America first and doing what he should be doing as America's president. So there's that list to keep in mind of why we should pray for and support Donald Trump. And when he does something you don't like, you should let him know about it. He used God's name in vain in a rally a few months ago, and we made sure he knew about it, and we told folks, pray for him, because it's bad, it shouldn't do it. But again, don't shoot your, what do they say, cut off your nose to spite your face. That's what a lot of Christians are doing.